This morning I want to show you a map. Anyone ever seen a map before? It'll be here in a second. Magical map. That's a map. Anybody seen a map like that before? That's a basic Mercator projection. This is probably the kind of map you have seen in your schools, you might have had in your home. You've seen it probably 1,000 times. And sometimes we get to the point where this is the way we look at the world. We begin to think this is the way the world really looks. That North America's right there in the middle, and that these are the sizes and shapes of the world. But the thing is, this map distorts things. And we may forget that if we only look at the world this way. If we only look at the map in this way. Like, look at Greenland. Greenland is not that big. Greenland is actually 0.8 million square miles, not even 1 million square miles. Africa, right there, is 11.6. Look at Greenland compared to Africa. 0.8 million, 11.6 million. But Greenland looks bigger. But that's not right. Or look at Europe and South America. Europe looks bigger than South America. Europe is 3.8 million square miles. South America is 6.9 million square miles. Why is Europe bigger on this map? Or what about the former Soviet Union and Africa? It looks like you can fit 2 Africas into the old USSR. But Soviet Union, 8.7 million, Africa, 11.6. Why is that area so much bigger? You see, this map distorts reality. Now, Alaska's not bigger than Mexico, but the map is good for certain things. It offers realistic depictions of shapes, relative position, but it can't show us a true accurate picture of our world. But what if we looked at another map? What if we looked at the Peters map that showed accurate relative sizes of things and flipped that map upside down? I mean, who's to say the northern hemisphere is on top? In a globe in space, north doesn't mean up. It doesn't mean top. Take a look at this map. Does that even look like our world we're used to? I mean, it's something we haven't ever really looked at it from this vantage point before, so it looks completely different. Probably because we're just not used to looking at it this way. You know, our collective Christian thoughts usually turn to the cross this time of year, Lent and Eastertide. But I wonder, do we tend to look at the cross the same way every year? Do we tend to always just kind of look at it from one particular vantage point? I mean, have we surmised our salvation is summarily sealed by way of satisfactory substitution? That's a lot of S's right there. Which basically means, do we look at the cross as the place where Christ took our place to take the punishment from an angry God that needed to punish somebody? Or do we look at the cross as this idea of heroic, passive self-sacrifice? Or maybe as this is the moral example we should all live by? Or Anselm's forensic satisfaction, that there had to be honor paid in this kind of vassal system. We often tend to look at the cross one way, through one set of eyes, through certain kinds of hymns. We often think of the atonement of the cross as a this is how it worked thing. But in reality, the meaning of the cross is described and explained in different ways by every writer of the New Testament. The gospel writers don't agree. The epistle writers don't agree. Paul gives several different examples, images, analogies to try to explain it, because there isn't just one way that you can say this is how it worked and this is it. But if we just view it from one vantage point, we begin to miss so much, and our reality becomes distorted and skewed like the Mercator projection map. The Mercator projection map is great for certain things, but if you only look at the world that way, you're going to miss something. If you only look at the cross one way, you're going to miss something. So this morning, I want us to flip the map upside down, shift everything over a few frames, and look at the cross in what may be a completely new way. I want to tell you a trickster's tale. Have you ever heard a trickster's tale before? There are characters in most major religions, mythology, folk tales of every civilization in which there are tricksters. Tricksters on the pages of beloved children's stories and in television shows. Anybody ever used to watch the Saturday morning cartoons? I used to love Saturday morning cartoons. Now, Saturday morning cartoons were filled with tricksters. Can you think of a Saturday morning cartoon character that often would use just his or her wits to kind of maybe get into some trouble or get out of trouble? Just play these kind of playful characters, tricks. Anybody remember anybody like that? Roadrunner. Coyote would try to get into some mischief. Who else? Bugs Bunny's the classic example of a trickster character. He'll stick a door in the middle of the woods and someone have to knock, and he's dressed up as a nurse or a secretary and causing poor Elmer Fudd to have all sorts of problems. But he gets out of the situation through his wits, through cleverness. You know, maybe you've heard this story, the story of a king who wants to find a suitable husband for his daughter. So he has a series of tests. And all these brave and strong knights try to complete these tests to win the hand of the king's daughter. But none of them can do it until eventually a poor peasant boy comes. And using his wits, he's able to complete these tasks. Have you heard a story like that before? It's out there. Or if you've seen any of these cartoons, then you've heard a trickster's tale. They're in all the pages of literature, mythology, folk tales. I mean, most religions have trickster characters. There's Loki in Norse mythology, Eris in Greek, Coyote in Native American, and Jacob in Hebrew. You remember Jacob, right? Not so strong and macho as Esau, but he was clever. You know, he tricked Esau out of his inheritance. He tricked Laban, his uncle, out of the best sheep. He even tried to trick God. Jacob was a classic trickster character. I always loved Jacob. He was always scheming, plotting, finding some way. I always liked the trickster characters. From Parker Lewis and Parker Lewis Can't Lose. Anybody actually remember that show back in the day? Synchronized Swatches? Anybody? Nobody? Bueller? Or Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell. Zach Morris, anybody? That was my generation growing up. Bugs Bunny, Doctor Who is my new favorite. Anybody watch Doctor Who? BBC? So Rick Kern. Yes, Rick Kern. I always loved the clever, fun-loving heroes. So I want to tell you a trickster's tale. I was at my friend Davy's house one morning. We were, I think, maybe about 8th grade. I used to go over there often after school. And he had a younger sister that was in 6th grade. And so, you know, 6th grade, 8th grade, brothers, sisters, most of the time you don't get along with each other. Well, for some reason, we were in a big tiff, fight, argument. I don't even remember what, but we were just sniping back and forth, getting on each other's nerves. She did something to us, I don't remember, so we thought we were going to get her back. Luckily, we had some balloons and a faucet outside Davy's door. He had a back exit into the backyard, and there was a nice little tap right there. So balloons, water, faucet, simple, right? We filled up some water balloons. We went back inside, and now Krista had a little mat outside her front door. So we put the water balloons underneath the mat. Then we went back to his room, went around the outside, and rang the doorbell. Now, what do you think is going to happen? She opens the door and steps on the mat and just squashes water balloons. Well, that's not much, right? Well, she opens the door, and of course she sees this big lumping mat with water balloons. So she picks up the mat, throws it away, and picks up the water balloons. She comes tramping through the house, charging, going, "Do you think I'm that stupid?" And she throws the water balloons at Davy's door, completely soaking and ruining this Clemson football poster that I'd given him from Christmas, which I hated Clemson, so I wasn't too upset with that. South Carolina, go Gamecocks. But completely ruining that. Now, that doesn't seem like much of a get back, right? Now, any of you know me at all, you probably know, even in 8th grade, I wasn't going to do anything that simple. See, before we did all of this, we took a video camera, and we set it up in a bookshelf aimed right at the door. You see, Krista thought she had won the day. She thought she figured out her whole trick, grabbed the water balloons, and we're just going to throw them at the door. Little did she know that we had planned all along for her to find the water balloons, pick them up, and walk through the house and throw